Have you ever paused to wonder why your life feels so different from those around you? Not just in what you've experienced, but in how deeply those experiences have shaped you. The moments that carved your character, the quiet whisper of destiny in your heart, and the inexplicable sense that you were meant for something greater. Could all of this mean you were chosen? Chosen not by accident, nor by the fleeting favor of circumstance, but by the divine hand of purpose itself. The scriptures tell us that God does not choose arbitrarily, He selects with intention. In Jeremiah 1:5, the Lord declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." From the very beginning, your life may have been a tapestry woven with threads of mystery, struggle, and revelation. Perhaps even as a child you felt it, the weight of something unseen, the tug of a calling too grand for words. Have you ever dared to ask yourself why you were set apart? Look back at your childhood. Can you see it now? The moments others dismissed, the dreams they ridiculed, and the tears you shed in silence, each one might have been a sign that you were chosen. Chosen for a path that is not easy but extraordinary. A path not paved with ordinary stones but with trials meant to refine you. A path guided by God Himself, shaping you into someone who can carry the weight of a destiny too great for most to bear. Pause for a moment and reflect. Do you remember the times when you felt isolated, even in a crowded room? When your thoughts seemed older than your years? When you saw the world not just as it is, but as it could be? These weren't mere coincidences. They were the seeds of something greater, planted in the soil of your spirit long before you knew what they would become. The Bible reminds us in 1 Peter 2:9, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light." But why does being chosen often come with so much pain? Why does the road feel so lonely and the journey so steep? Could it be that the trials you faced were not meant to break you but to prepare you? To make you strong enough to stand firm when others would falter? To give you the wisdom to see beyond the moment and the faith to trust that every step, no matter how difficult, is leading you closer to your purpose? Think of the greats throughout history, the ones who changed the world, who defied the odds, and who stood tall when others fell. They too were once children, often misunderstood, often overlooked. Yet in the quiet corners of their hearts they knew they were different. They knew they were called, and in time the world came to see what God had already ordained. Perhaps you felt the same. The quiet conviction that your life is meant to matter. The sense that your struggles are not in vain but are shaping you into someone extraordinary, someone who can carry a light into the darkness, not just for yourself but for others who need hope. Jesus Himself spoke in John 15:16, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last." If He has chosen you, He has equipped you for the journey ahead. This is not a message of vanity but of destiny. For being chosen is not about being better than others. It is about being willing to serve. It is about answering the call, even when the cost is high. It is about walking a path that demands everything yet gives back more than you could ever imagine. But how do you know if you were truly chosen? How can you be certain that the signs you've seen are real and not the product of wishful thinking? The answer lies in looking back not with regret but with discernment. Your past holds the clues hidden in the moments that shaped you, moments that might have seemed insignificant at the time but now shine with divine purpose. Today we will uncover those signs together. We will walk through 7 clear and undeniable indicators that you were chosen long before you even knew what it meant to be chosen. These signs are not just markers of your past, they are keys to your future. They are reminders that your life is not an accident and your purpose is not a coincidence. So lean in, open your heart, and let the truth resonate deeply within you. Because by the time we're finished, you will see your life in a new light. You will understand that every challenge, every tear, and every triumph has been preparing you for this moment. First sign you faced betrayal or hurt from those closest to you. When we talk about being chosen, the journey often begins in pain. One of the clearest signs that you were chosen is the betrayal or hurt you experience from those closest to you, people you trusted, loved, and depended upon. This pain is not random. It holds a deeper meaning, though it may feel unbearable at the time. The Bible tells us in Psalm 41:9, "Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has turned against me." If betrayal could touch the lives of even the most faithful, then we should not be surprised when it comes to us. For those who are chosen, such wounds are not meant to destroy but to transform. They force us to look inward, to seek strength from within and from God, rather than relying solely on human relationships. Think about the pain of being hurt by someone you once believed was your safe haven. The betrayal might have come in the form of harsh words, actions that undermined your trust, or indifference when you needed them most. In these moments, you may have wondered why God allowed such things to happen. But could it be that He was teaching you a lesson no human teacher could? Could it be that He was sharpening your spirit for a greater purpose? When Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, and sold into slavery, it would have been easy for him to succumb to despair. Yet Joseph's story is one of redemption, not because his brothers, but because Joseph trusted in the God who called him. Genesis 50:20 reminds us of Joseph's words, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." The betrayal Joseph endured was a necessary part of his journey to greatness. Without it, he could not have become the man God intended him to be. In your life, those closest to you may have betrayed you because they couldn't understand the weight of your calling. Sometimes the chosen ones are surrounded by people who feel threatened by their potential, or who are too blinded by their own flaws to see the light within you. This betrayal might have left you questioning your worth, feeling unworthy of love, or doubting the goodness of the world. But remember, God often uses the actions of others to shape us into who we are meant to be. Pain from betrayal also reveals where our true dependence should lie. It's easy to place too much trust in people, expecting them to fill the voids in our hearts. But humans are fallible. Only God is unchanging. Psalm 118:8 declares, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in humans." Through your pain, God was showing you that your ultimate source of love, security, and validation must come from Him. Betrayal can feel isolating, leaving you to wonder if anyone truly understands your struggles. Yet you are never alone. Jesus Himself was betrayed by one of His disciples, someone who walked beside Him, witnessed His miracles, and shared His meals. When Judas handed Him over for 30 pieces of silver, it wasn't just a betrayal of friendship, it was a rejection of Jesus' divine purpose. But even that betrayal served a greater plan, leading to the salvation of humanity. If you've endured such wounds, take heart. God allows these experiences to refine you, not to punish you. He uses them to strip away illusions, to help you see the reality of your situation and the truth of your calling. The pain you've endured is not meaningless. It is part of a divine process, one that molds you into someone who can carry the weight of being chosen. The world might see your scars as a sign of weakness, but in God's eyes they are marks of endurance. Every wound you've received from those closest to you is a testimony to your resilience and proof that God is preparing you for something extraordinary. Each betrayal you've endured has taught you to rise above bitterness, to forgive, and to find strength in places you never knew existed. In your suffering, you have been drawn closer to the heart of God. When others have let you down, He has remained faithful. When your heart was shattered, He began the process of healing it piece by piece, making it stronger than before. Remember, God often isolates before He elevates. The rejection you faced was a redirection, pushing you toward the path He has prepared for you. Betrayal by loved ones is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a deeper relationship with the one who will never betray you. Your pain has not been wasted. It is the foundation upon which God will build something beautiful, something that only a chosen one could carry forward. Second sign, you were criticized for being different. Criticism has a way of cutting deep, especially when it comes from those closest to you. When you are chosen, your uniqueness often becomes a target, not a treasure. The very traits that set you apart, the way you think, dream, or approach life, are sometimes misunderstood by others and met with judgment or ridicule. This criticism isn't a reflection of your inadequacy, but rather a sign of the greatness within you. From a young age, you may have been told that your ideas were impractical or your dreams too ambitious. People around you might have dismissed your way of thinking, calling it strange or unrealistic. Yet God does not call the ordinary for extraordinary purposes. He chooses those who think differently, see beyond the surface, and dare to question what others accept without thought. Isaiah 55:8 reminds us of God's words. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. Could it be that your difference is not a flaw but a reflection of the unique way God created you? Being chosen often means standing out, and standing out invites criticism. This is especially true when your light shines brightly in environments where people are comfortable in the dark. Your willingness to step out of the norm, to pursue what others fear, or to ask questions that challenge the status quo can make others uncomfortable. Their criticism isn't always rooted in malice. Sometimes it stems from their inability to see what you see. Yet it can feel deeply personal, especially when it comes from people you thought would support you. Consider the story of David. As a young shepherd boy, he was overlooked by his own family when the prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel. His brothers dismissed him as insignificant, even mocking his courage when he volunteered to face Goliath. In 1 Samuel 17:28, his brother Eliab says, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." Yet, it was David's willingness to be different, his bold faith and unwavering belief in God's power that set him apart and allowed him to fulfill his destiny. Criticism, especially from those we love, can create feelings of rejection. You might have found yourself wondering why others couldn't see your vision or appreciate your efforts. Perhaps you even questioned your worth or tried to conform to their expectations in an attempt to fit in. But God didn't create you to blend in. He created you to stand out. Matthew 5:14 says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Your light isn't meant to be dimmed by others' opinions. It is meant to shine brightly, guiding others towards something greater." The criticism you faced may have been painful, but it served a purpose. It forced you to grow stronger, to stand firm in your convictions, and to trust in the vision God placed in your heart. People often criticize what they don't understand, and your uniqueness might have been beyond their comprehension. Instead of seeing your difference as a burden, God calls you to see it as a blessing. The very things they criticized were the tools He gave you to fulfill your purpose. Jesus Himself was no stranger to criticism. The Pharisees and even those from His own hometown questioned His teachings and authority. In Matthew 13:57, it says, "And they took offense at Him. But Jesus said to them, 'A prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home.'" If even the Son of God faced rejection and criticism for being different, then how much more will those who are chosen experience the same? Over time, you may have learned to embrace your difference, seeing it not as something to be ashamed of, but as a sign of your calling. The very things others tried to tear down became the foundation of your strength. You developed resilience, learning to stand tall even when others doubted you. You stopped seeking approval from people and started seeking guidance from God. In Galatians 1:10, Paul writes, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." This journey wasn't easy, but it was necessary. God allowed the criticism not to harm you, but to refine you. He used it to strip away your dependence on human validation, teaching you to rely fully on Him. The more you faced, the stronger your faith grew, and the clearer your vision became. You began to understand that being chosen comes with a cost, and part of that cost is enduring the opinions of those who cannot see what God has revealed to you. Your difference is not an accident. It is intentional, purposeful, and divine. The very traits others tried to criticize were planted within you by God Himself. They are the tools you will use to fulfill your calling, to shine your light, and to walk the path that He has prepared for you. Let every word of criticism be a reminder that you are chosen, and let it strengthen your resolve to walk boldly in your God-given purpose. Third sign, you felt different from others. From the moment you were old enough to notice, you knew you didn't quite fit in. There was something about you that set you apart, something unexplainable. While others seemed to move with the current, you often felt as though you were swimming upstream, drawn to thoughts, ideas, and dreams that seemed far removed from the world around you. This wasn't a coincidence, it was a sign. The feeling of being different isn't a burden, it's a mark of being chosen. In the Bible, God consistently calls out those who are set apart. In Deuteronomy 14:2 it says, "For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. Out of all the peoples on the face of the earth, the Lord has chosen you to be His treasured possession." To be chosen means to be distinct, to carry a uniqueness that aligns with the purpose God has placed on your life. But feeling different as a child often comes with its challenges. Perhaps you were drawn to things that others dismissed or didn't understand. Maybe you saw the world through a lens of wonder, curiosity, or empathy that others couldn't grasp. Your questions about life, your deep reflections, and your sensitivity might have made you feel like an outsider. But those qualities were not flaws, they were gifts from God, preparing you for a path only you could walk. Consider the story of Moses. He was born into a situation that forced his parents to hide him, setting him apart from the very beginning. Raised in Pharaoh's palace but connected to his Hebrew roots, Moses must have felt the weight of his dual identity. He didn't fully belong in either world, and yet God used his unique position to fulfill an extraordinary purpose. In Exodus 3:10, God says, "So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people the Israelites out of Egypt." Moses' difference wasn't a hindrance. It was the very thing that equipped him to lead. You too have been equipped with qualities that make you stand out, even when standing out feels isolating. As a child, you might have been the one with a vivid imagination, the one who dreamed of things others couldn't see, or the one who saw possibilities where others saw limitations. While others were focused on fitting in, you were quietly asking, "What more is there to life?" These weren't just idle thoughts, they were seeds planted by God, seeds of purpose and destiny. Being different often invites misunderstanding. People may have labeled you as odd or difficult, not because there was something wrong with you, but because your difference challenged their comfort. In John 15:19, Jesus tells his disciples, "If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world." This scripture reminds us that those who are chosen will always feel a certain tension with the world around them. Feeling different can also come with a sense of loneliness. You may have longed for someone to understand your thoughts or share your vision, yet found few who could. But in those quiet moments of solitude, God was shaping you. He was teaching you to rely on Him, to find your identity not in the approval of others, but in His calling. Psalm 139:14 declares, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." Your difference is not a mistake. It is a reflection of God's intentional design for your life. The very things that made you feel out of place as a child are the qualities that will lead you to your purpose. Perhaps you had a deep sense of empathy that others saw as weakness. Yet God will use that empathy to connect you with people in ways others cannot. Maybe you had unusual curiosity that led you to ask questions others avoided, and now that curiosity drives you to seek truth and wisdom. Being different isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about being prepared for a unique mission. God doesn't call those who conform. He calls those who are willing to stand out. When he called Jeremiah, he said in Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." This setting apart is both a privilege and a responsibility, one that often begins with the quiet realization that you were never meant to blend in. If you felt different your entire life, it's because God designed you to carry something extraordinary. Your thoughts, your dreams, and your way of seeing the world were given to you for a reason. They are part of a divine blueprint, a calling that requires you to embrace your uniqueness fully. Through all the confusion and questioning, God has been with you, guiding you, and reminding you that you are His. Your difference is not a burden, it is the mark of someone chosen for greatness. Fourth sign. You had a deep sensitivity to injustice. From an early age, something within you stirred when you witnessed unfairness or wrongdoings. You couldn't simply turn a blind eye or dismiss the pain of others. Whether it was a friend being treated unfairly, a stranger suffering, or even the quiet injustices no one else seemed to notice, your heart broke in ways that others couldn't understand. This sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was evidence of a calling planted in your spirit. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 31:8-9, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and needy." Your deep sensitivity to injustice is not accidental, it is a God-given trait that sets you apart for a greater purpose. It marks you as someone chosen to stand in the gap, to carry the burdens of others, and to be a voice for the voiceless. As a child, this sensitivity might have made you feel out of place. While others carried on with their lives, oblivious to the pain around them, you couldn't help but notice. The cries of the weak, the struggles of the oppressed, and even the subtle injustices in everyday situations resonated deeply with you. Perhaps you were told to let it go or stop overthinking. But the truth is, your heart wasn't overreacting, it was responding to the divine purpose etched into your soul. Think about Nehemiah, a man deeply moved by the injustices he witnessed. When he heard about the broken walls of Jerusalem and the suffering of his people, he wept, fasted and prayed. Nehemiah 1:4 says, "When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven." His sensitivity to the plight of his people wasn't just emotion, it was a calling to act. Like Nehemiah, your sensitivity to injustice is a sign that you were chosen to bring healing and restoration to the broken places in this world. This trait may have made you vulnerable to pain. Seeing injustice so clearly often feels like carrying a burden too heavy to bear. You might have cried out to God, asking why He allowed you to feel so deeply, why He didn't shield you from the heartbreak. But in those moments, God was shaping your heart to reflect His own. Psalm 34:18 tells us, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Your sensitivity connects you to God's heart and aligns you with His mission of justice and redemption. Being sensitive to injustice doesn't mean you are weak. It means you are attuned to God's voice. It means your spirit responds to the things that grieve His heart. When Jesus entered the temple and saw it being turned into a marketplace, He didn't remain silent. John 2:15 describes how He drove out the merchants, overturning their tables in righteous anger. His actions remind us that sensitivity to injustice is not passive, it calls us to act, to speak, and to bring change. Perhaps your sensitivity to injustice also made you a target. You may have spoken out when others stayed silent, and instead of support, you faced criticism or isolation. The world often misunderstands those who stand for what is right. But take heart, for Jesus said in Matthew 5:10, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Your willingness to feel deeply and act boldly is a testament to the divine purpose God has placed in you. This sensitivity has also shaped your character. It has taught you compassion, empathy, and the courage to confront what others ignore. It has drawn you closer to God, as you've sought His wisdom and strength to navigate a world filled with injustice. Through every tear and every prayer, God has been refining you, molding you into someone who can carry His light into the darkest places. You may have wondered why you couldn't simply turn it off like others seem to do, why you couldn't ignore the pain around you. But the truth is, your sensitivity is your strength. It is a gift that allows you to see the world through God's eyes, to feel His love for the hurting, and to be His hands and feet in bringing justice and healing. Your journey has not been easy, but it has been intentional. God has been preparing you to stand where others won't, to speak when others are silent, and to act when others hesitate. Your sensitivity is a mark of being chosen, a sign that God has called you to make a difference in a world that desperately needs it. Fifth sign, you experienced uncommon hardships. From a young age, your life may have been marked by trials that seemed heavier than what others around you faced. While your peers lived with simplicity and ease, your journey was different, filled with obstacles, losses, and moments of despair that felt overwhelming. These hardships weren't just random occurrences. They were a sign of preparation, an indication that you were chosen for something far greater than the ordinary. The Bible is rich with stories of those who faced profound struggles before stepping into their calling. Consider Job, a man described as blameless and upright, yet subjected to unimaginable suffering. He lost his wealth, health, and family, yet in the midst of his pain, he held fast to his faith. In Job 23:10, he declares, "But He knows the way that I take. When He has tested me, I will come forth as gold." Your hardships, too, are not without purpose. They are a refining process, a way for God to shape and prepare you for the extraordinary path He has laid before you. These challenges might have come in many forms: the loss of a loved one, financial struggles, health issues, or emotional pain. Each trial left its mark, yet it also revealed your resilience. While others may have crumbled under similar circumstances you endured, you may not have realized it at the time, but every tear, every sleepless night, and every desperate prayer was building your spiritual strength. Think about Joseph, whose life was filled with hardship from a young age. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused, he endured years of suffering. Yet, through it all, God was with him, orchestrating every moment for a greater purpose. Genesis 39:21 says, "The Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden." Like Joseph, your trials are not evidence of God's absence, but proof of His presence, guiding you through the fire so you can emerge stronger. Your hardships may have made you feel isolated, as though no one truly understood what you were going through. While others seemed to thrive effortlessly, you struggled just to get through the day. But God's word reminds us in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." It is in your weakest moments that God's strength becomes most evident. These uncommon hardships were not only a test of your endurance, but also a lesson in dependence. They taught you to rely on God when there was no one else to turn to trust in His plan when your own seemed to fail. The Apostle Paul, who faced countless trials, wrote in Romans 5:3-4, "Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Your suffering has been producing within you a character and hope that cannot be shaken. It is often through hardship that God reveals the depth of His love and faithfulness. You may have experienced moments where you felt abandoned, crying out to God and wondering why He allowed you to endure so much pain. Yet in hindsight, you can see how He carried you through, providing strength when you had none and opening doors when all seemed lost. Perhaps your struggles were not just for you, but also for those you are called to serve. Your ability to empathize with the pain of others, to offer hope and encouragement, is born from your own experiences. Isaiah 61:1 speaks of this calling. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners. Your hardships have equipped you to fulfill this divine mission. Uncommon hardships often come to those who are destined for uncommon greatness. They strip away distractions, refine your focus, and build a strength that cannot be shaken. Like gold purified in fire, your trials have been a process of preparation, ensuring that you are ready to carry the weight of the calling God has placed on your life. Even in moments of doubt and despair, God has been working. He has been using your pain to shape your purpose, your struggles to build your story, and your endurance to reflect His glory. Though the road has been hard, it is leading you to a destination far beyond what you could imagine. Sixth sign: you were often misunderstood. As a chosen one, being misunderstood has likely been a recurring theme in your life. From a young age, your thoughts, actions, and words may have been met with confusion, skepticism, or even ridicule. Those around you couldn't see what you saw, couldn't grasp the depth of your dreams, and couldn't comprehend the purpose God had placed within you. This misunderstanding wasn't because you were wrong, but because your perspective was far ahead of its time. The Bible speaks of this experience in John 1:10-11. He was in the world, and though the world was made through Him, the world did not recognize Him. He came to that which was His own, but His own did not receive Him. Even Jesus, the Son of God, was misunderstood by those He came to save. If He, in all His perfection, faced rejection and confusion, then how much more will those He calls and sets apart experience the same? Being misunderstood can be deeply painful, especially when it comes from those you love and trust. You may have shared your dreams only to be met with laughter or doubt. Perhaps your choices, guided by your faith and purpose, were criticized as reckless or naive. This isolation can feel like a heavy burden, yet it is also a sign of being chosen. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Your calling isn't meant to be understood by everyone, because it is orchestrated by God, whose plans surpass human understanding. Consider Noah, who was commanded by God to build an ark in preparation for a flood that had yet to come. Imagine the ridicule and misunderstanding he endured as he worked tirelessly on something no one else believed was necessary. Yet Noah's obedience to God's direction not only saved his family but also became a pivotal moment in history. Hebrews 11:7 says, "By faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. By his faith he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with faith." Like Noah, your faith may lead you to paths others can't comprehend, but it is your obedience that matters. Being misunderstood often serves a deeper purpose. It forces you to depend on God rather than seeking validation from people. When others fail to see your vision, it draws you closer to the one who gave it to you. Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." Your path may be lonely at times, but it is divinely guided. This misunderstanding may also be a test of your resilience. Will you allow the doubts of others to deter you, or will you stand firm in your faith? When Jesus began His ministry, even His own family questioned Him. In Mark 3:21, it says, "When His family heard about this, they went to take charge of Him, for they said, He's out of his mind. Yet Jesus remained unwavering, knowing that his mission was far greater than their approval. Your persistence in the face of misunderstanding is a testament to your calling and the strength God has placed within you. Being misunderstood is also a sign of uniqueness. The world often struggles to accept what it doesn't understand. Your vision, your values, and your dreams may seem radical to those who are accustomed to mediocrity. But this radical difference is what sets you apart as a chosen one. Romans 12:2 urges us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Your life is not meant to mirror the world's expectations, but to reflect God's divine purpose. In these moments of misunderstanding, God is teaching you patience and perseverance. He is molding you into someone who can walk boldly in your calling, regardless of the opinions of others. When people fail to understand you, it is an opportunity to lean into God's understanding and trust that his plan for your life is unfolding perfectly. Your experience of being misunderstood is not a mark of failure, it is a badge of honor. It signifies that you are walking a path uniquely designed for you, a path that others may not recognize, but one that God has ordained. Through every misunderstanding, God is preparing you to be a light in the darkness, a voice for the voiceless, and a testimony to his power and grace. Seventh sign: you had a natural affinity for faith and hope. Even as a child, there was something within you that gravitated toward faith. While others might have found comfort in the tangible, you instinctively sought something greater, something unseen. In moments of despair, when others would have given up, you held on not because the situation made sense, but because something deep within you told you there was more. This innate connection to faith and hope wasn't an accident. It was a divine gift, a mark of being chosen. The Bible reminds us in Hebrews 11:1, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see." This verse speaks to the essence of the faith you've carried since your youth. Even when circumstances seemed impossible, you believed that things could change, that light could pierce the darkness, and that God was working behind the scenes. This hope wasn't naive, it was a reflection of the spiritual awareness placed in you by God himself. Perhaps you remember moments as a child when your faith set you apart. While others doubted or mocked, you found solace in prayer, believing that God was listening. You may have felt an unexplainable peace in difficult situations, a peace that Philippians 4:7 describes as the peace of God, which transcends all understanding. This wasn't just a coping mechanism, it was evidence of a deeper connection to the divine. Faith isn't just believing in what you can see. It's trusting in the promises of God, even when the world gives you every reason to doubt. Consider Abraham, who was called by God to leave everything he knew and journey to a land that had been promised but not yet revealed. Hebrews 11:8 says, "By faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going." Like Abraham, your faith has guided you, even when the path ahead was unclear. This natural affinity for faith often made you a source of encouragement to others. People may have turned to you in their times of need, drawn to your ability to see hope where they saw despair. Your words and actions became a beacon of light, not because you were perfect, but because you trusted in a perfect God. This wasn't something you learned, it was something you carried, a gift given to you by the one who called you. However, having this natural connection to faith and hope didn't mean your journey was easy. There were times when your faith was tested, when life's challenges made you question everything you believed. Yet, even in those moments, you found yourself returning to God, drawn back by a love and peace you couldn't find anywhere else. Psalm 46:1 reminds us, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." This verse encapsulates the foundation you've leaned on throughout your life. Your hope was not limited to your own circumstances, it extended to others. You could see potential where others saw failure, possibilities where others saw dead ends. This ability to hope wasn't just optimism, it was a reflection of your spiritual calling. Romans 15:13 says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." The hope within you wasn't of this world. It was planted by God to be shared with those around you. This natural faith also served as a shield during your trials. Ephesians 6:16 describes faith as a shield that can extinguish the fiery arrows of the enemy. There were times when life's hardships could have consumed you, but your faith protected you, reminding you that God was in control. This wasn't blind faith. It was faith grounded in the knowledge that God's plans for you are good, as promised in Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Your affinity for faith and hope also connected you to God in ways that others couldn't understand. While some saw religion as a ritual, you experienced it as a relationship. You spoke to God not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to know him, to feel his presence, and to walk in his purpose. This intimacy with God is one of the clearest signs of being chosen. Through every trial and triumph, your faith has been the anchor that kept you grounded. It's what has allowed you to rise above life's challenges, to see beyond the present, and to trust in a future designed by God. Your hope isn't fleeting or shallow, it's rooted in the promises of a God who never fails.